And I think New London could be very well positioned in terms of small business because we have a transit hub. It has
Absolutely.
not really been refined to where it could be. And I keep thinking, we import so much of what we need now, and that is not going to go on forever. We're not going to be able to get all of our, ballpoint pens from China. It just, oil costs are going to rise, and some of the small businesses can start manufacturing things that we need.
Right.
It would be nice to get a large part of what we need for day-to-day life from businesses that operate close to us.
Absolutely, and I think that that's not just a progressive point of view. I mean, this is what leading conservative, thinkers are saying the same thing. We need to end our dependence on foreign oil.
Right.
Richard Nixon talked constantly about ending our dependence on foreign oil 30 years ago. So, this is something that we all recognize is a problem, not only for our economic growth, but for our national security, too. I mean, the more that we can be a self-sustaining community, the more we'll provide jobs to local people, have a more sustainable economy, a more sustainable environment, and end some of these dependencies on imports, particularly for energy, that cause so many other problems for our country as well.
Yeah, foreign policy issues, which don't directly impact on New London government, but indirectly do really impact on our life.
We're all consumers, and every government, be it city or state, can choose where it invests and how it looks for its resource needs. And a lot of these issues and these problems are societal. They go across the country or across the world, but that doesn't mean that we should do nothing. We all have a role to play, and I think that we in our small way can do our part, and that it will improve the lives of people in New London.
Now, we touched on green industry and growing in a sustainable way. What kind of green jobs do you feel we should be encouraging here, and what kind of steps can we be taking to become less dependent?
Right. Well, one of the things, there's a couple that we can do. In terms of encouraging small business growth, a lot of green energy companies and green technology companies are small businesses that wherever they operate tend to employ local people, as most small businesses do, and also tend to be very active parts of the communities in which they live. They give to softball teams. They're
Right.
community-focused types of companies with community missions. So by bringing them into a community, you hit multiple balls with one swing. But in terms of specific energy needs, I discussed that Fort Trumbull, an area that since the eminent domain mess has sat vacant for almost a decade now. And there are a lot of different ideas for how to redevelop that area. Some of the ones I talk about is that we could put green energy companies there, whether it be a clean water facility or a wind turbine or anything like that, even a solar field. It would add to our energy needs, it would grow our tax base, it would create jobs, but it could also be used as a learning tool, because right at Fort Trumbull, at the fort itself, we have an exhibit center, we have the historical fort. If we also at the same time had a green tech company that gave tours or had a museum or something, you can create a whole learning environment there in addition to an economic engine that can provide for our long-term, some of our long-term resource needs, but also when we invest in those types of jobs and those types of companies, we're looking forward. Green energy and our energy resource needs 30 years from now, 50 years from now, that's going to be the hot thing.
Maybe
that's
even
what
5
you
or 10
want.
years
Maybe even
from
5
now.
or 10. We hope it's longer, but we need to start investing in that, not only for our own security, but because by doing that, we invest in jobs in the future. If we continue to look to, say, the defense industry, while we should try to preserve those jobs while they're here and they're such a vital part of our economy, we can't rely on those jobs for 50 years. They've already been threatened. They may be threatened again. We'll fight for them because any responsible government would, but can we count on those jobs for 25 years? I don't know. But green technology jobs, we know that the demand is only going to increase. So why not plug into the jobs of the future? It only makes sense to me.
And we have a phone call.
Oh, wonderful.
Thanks for calling Thinking Green.
Hi, two things. There is a community in New Jersey that is nearly self-sufficient and totally green that would probably be a good role model to look at as far as going green. And I have one question. What can you foresee as far as helping the taxpayers in New London that are just suffocated with high taxes and giving us a relief? I'm paying over $500 a month in taxes, and it's killing me.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you very much. I can say I am in the same boat. I just bought one of those homes in the old 6th District that has a very high tax bill. I think mine is probably only $50 off of the caller's when it breaks out monthly. We fully recognize that taxes are very high in New London, and that drives businesses and drives people out of the community. But we also have to recognize that we're a very, very small community with a very limited amount of land, and unfortunately property evaluation is the only way we have to generate local revenue. So some of the ways to respond to the caller that we can try to minimize any impact on taxation is first and foremost to get a full-time grants coordinator. To have a mayor also who goes out and lobbies in Hartford, in Washington, in New York, in boardrooms, wherever and whenever he or she can, to attract new revenue and attract new businesses. Because if we attract these new businesses, be they green tech companies or cultural companies or whoever they are, they grow our tax base, they create revenue, and local revenues can increase. And if local revenues increase, hopefully we can reduce taxation or stabilize taxation or minimize tax increases. But I think that any responsible candidate for this office has to say, honestly, that you can lean the budget, and there are a number of different ways to do that, and perhaps, if necessary, the use of that line item veto will be a tool. But we have state mandates for education. We have debt service payments that we're legally obligated to make. We have contractual obligations that we're legally obligated to make. And the costs of maintaining even the same level of government every year increases because of inflationary cost increases. So if a candidate comes forward and says, I can absolutely guarantee that I can lower your taxes, they're either being irresponsible because they don't understand the fiscal realities that the city faces, or they're just lying. And then they'll raise taxes later, or cut essential services because they don't mind if a school loses its accreditation, or if snow can't be picked up, or if police can't do their job, or we have to lay off police and fire. I mean, we have to run a city government, and I'm not going to campaign for this office promising people, guaranteed, I'm going to lower your taxes, because I don't think that I may be able to. I hope I am, and I lay out in my platform multiple ways that I will try to do it, and I may well be very successful at it. When I was on the Westerly Town Council, I saw that when we were preparing our second budget, that the revenue estimates were off, that they were overestimating revenues to balance the budget on paper, because
has happened
as happens
well.
here, because it was an election year and everybody we don't want a tax increase, but we don't want to look like we're cutting anything. So they fudged the numbers, and I voted no, and it was a 6-to-1 vote. I was willing to be the only one to say no. I've always considered myself fiscally fairly conservative and responsible, and I think that my platform lays that out. But at the same time, I also think that blanket promises of tax relief are irresponsible at best and dishonest at worst, and I'm not going to do it.
Well, and the reality is that about 55% of the property we have in New London is tax exempt.
Correct.
So the taxpayers are, in a sense, subsidizing some of the nonprofits, and my own wish would be to get something in return. Obviously, not tax money.
No,
but
and there are contributions. I know at my university in Boston, Northeastern University contributes one of the largest sums voluntarily from the university. In Providence, Rhode Island, there was a lot of talk of taxing Brown University because of all the prime land it took off the tax base. So in response, Brown kicked over some more involuntary contributions. And that's something I'd certainly look to, talking to the presidents of Mitchell College and Conn College and the Commandant of the Coast Guard, to see how and where, a lot of these